Hi guys, it's obviously Miss Dodd. I wanted to take a moment. I know some of you are probably really struggling with trying to understand Shakespeare. He's definitely not an easy guy to understand to begin with, and even more so when you're trying to do it on your own. So since I had some time and I'm obviously at home, I don't know if you can see the background behind me, I wanted to take a minute to go through the worksheet. And if you guys have a chance to look at this, then maybe you will find this helpful. So the first thing I'm going to pull up is your Act 1 questions. This is, of course, assuming that you guys have already done the introduction, looked at the key questions about control and what it means to try and control someone and whether you can control someone. So then I just wanted to start off with some of these vocabulary words. The first one is austerity, which is a condition of lacking pleasure or luxury. So if something is austere, it's very simple, it's very basic. Beguile is our next one. It is a verb, it means to trick. Right? And the third one is cloister. It's a noun. It's traditionally where nuns or religious people would live in solitude. The next one is dote, which is to love with foolish fondness. If you dote on someone, you're completely smitten, you're completely love struck. Extenuate, usually we see this under the context of extenuating circumstances. There are things that make things less serious. They make them, another word for that is mitigate. Feign, right? We see feign, it's to fake or to pretend. Idolatry, right? We all know about idols, which is a false god. So idolatry is false worship. And then reveling, which of course is when you revel, you enjoy yourself. So reveling is another form of that word. So then we go down to our actual questions for Act 1, Scene 1. And the first one is, what is unusual about the courtship between Theseus and Hippolyta? So we go to our Act 1, Scene 1, and I'm going to read the Shakespearean form, and you guys can follow along and see what it essentially means in the plain English. So it starts with Theseus and Hippolyta entering the scene, and then Philostrate, which if you look at the cast of characters, you see he is known as the master of revels. He is the one who coordinates all of the parties, the celebrations. And Theseus says, "Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace." So we look over here. The hour of our wedding is speeding closer. So we can use deductive reasoning. No, nuptial has to do with a wedding or has to do with marriage. Draws on a pace, right, we see means is getting closer. 4 happy days bring in another moon. But oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. She lingers my desires, like to a stepdame or dowager, long withering out a young man's revenue. So the idea is they're getting married at the full moon, but the old moon seems to be taking forever to fade. It's like a young man waiting on his rich relative to move on so that he can inherit her fortune. And Hippolyta is trying to make him feel less impatient. And days will quickly steep themselves in night. 4 nights will quickly dream away the time, and then the moon, like to a silver bow, new bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities. So it's an interesting contrast that the wedding is supposed to be right, a happy day, but it's also a solemn day, which is, of course, what weddings are, right? They're both a very serious thing, but they're also something to celebrate. And so she's saying that the 4 days will pass quickly. And so Theseus, trying to make that come true, says, "Go, Philostrate, stir up the Athenian youth to merriments. Awake the pert and nimble spirits of youth, turn melancholy forth to funerals. The pale companion is not for our pomp." So he's telling Philostrate to go and basically plan a party, get all the young people who want to celebrate anyway up and going, so they can have a party, and it'll make Theseus think less about how long it's taking until his wedding arrives. So Philostrate takes off to go rouse up the Athenian youth. And then Theseus, and this is the key to your first question, he says, Hippolyta, I wooed thee with my sword, and won thy love doing thee injuries. But I will wed thee in another key, with pomp, with triumph, and with reveling. So remember, we have that reveling again. And the key is this but sentence here. He says, I wooed thee with my sword, and won thy love doing thee injuries, which of course we see in the translation, right? I wooed you by fighting against you, and won your love by injuring you. So if you're not sure what wooing means, we of course could look it up. But if you look at the context, we see that he's talking about winning her love. They talked earlier about how they're going to get married. And so what's a little bit strange is you have Theseus telling Hippolyta, I wooed you, right? I